Hello and good morning. Welcome to the Go Narrative stream. Today, we're going to be having a conversation and investigating another story type. Last week, we talked about this idea of changing perceptions and used the metaphor of the tailor, somebody who makes or dials in a suit. So what about changing perceptions? What's another really good topic for us to start looking at when it comes to business problems that you might need to tell a story about? Well, one of those is thinking about how you are interacting with your customers. Now, every business, right? Whether you are the biggest company in the world or you're just getting going, customers are your lifeblood. And the challenge with thinking about how to tell customer stories is, or rather stories that involve your customer and your relationship with your customer, is, do we have a great relationship with our customers right now? Do we have a terrible relationship with our customers right now? Is it somewhere in the middle? Every business ideally should always be thinking about its customers. I had a conversation yesterday with a friend and colleague of mine who is at a very large networking and security company. And he was talking about how he finds himself using the customer lens to bring in that outside perspective when he's having conversations, in particular with engineering. Because in those engineering conversations, there was so much about the technology, the innovation, and the cool stuff that was being built that everybody in the engineering team wanted to talk about their stuff, right? The what that the company was delivering. And when my friend brought that customer lens to the conversation, it changed the dynamic of the conversation. It's actually something that we love to do in our workshopping with our clients. And we actually affectionately call it the 3P process. And that is the process that you go through to think about who is the persona, right? The kind of representative persona of a client, a customer, a good representation of a target market, for example. And then the next P being, what are the pains that persona has? What are some of the kind of typical pains in their life and what they're going through in their business, in their jobs, and the whole shooting match, right? And looking at those two things and then asking ourselves the question, what is it about the product? What proofs are in the product or in our company that are an answer to that pain? Now, right, there's some kind of the obvious ones would be, if you've got something stuck in your teeth, you need the toothpick. Very precise, very practical, very much a tool, albeit a very small tool. In other cases, the pain might be more of an emotional pain. It might be, if we take a business to business example and we think about what it's like to be in a mid-level management position, managing a team, seeking to do the best for a part of the business, managing those relationships with the leadership team above you, and trying to do the best thing for your career and your family to provide for yourself and your family. There's a whole bunch of potential pain in there that's not specific to the job itself, right? The what of the job, but more about the how of the job. Am I going about this job in a way that is providing me with a great experience? And in that case, as one example, we might say, well, our company gets that. We understand the challenges that you experience. We factor that in. It's a value of ours to think about the big picture with our customers rather than just the practicalities. Now, as you hear that, you probably are thinking either, yes, we always do that, or we should definitely do that. Again, coming back to some of my first comments about, we all want to put our customers at the center, but it is easy to sometimes drift from that. What do we do when we've drifted from that? Well, hopefully something will wake us up. Something will grab us by the shirt collars and shake us. It might be customer satisfaction survey. It might be looking at reviews for our product on one of the, you ever go and look for comparisons against software products, for example, there's all these different websites that offer the comparisons, right? And a lot of that relies on users of the product going in and providing their feedback. So maybe you've seen a consistent bad trend of feedback. Maybe there's been a quality issue that your product has had. Maybe something made it through that shouldn't make it through and needs rectifying. There's a lot of things that can and do potentially damage the customer relationship. And when that happens and you become aware of it, what do? Well, you take steps to rectify that. You take steps to improve that. If it's a product, you look to go back to basics and say, okay, so what is the persona of our customer? What are the pains, and are we really addressing those pains with those? What proof do we have that we've got an answer to those pains? Or it might be a cultural thing. It might be the leadership team recognizing that, we need to revisit our values and look at how customers are represented in our values. It might be an effort to improve training of employees, right? Making sure that every single employee in the organization understands that there's this thing, fill in the blank. A good example would be privacy, data privacy, making sure that everybody in the organization understands that, so in their jobs, they can do a better job of it. So there's a lot of ways that we look to try and fix these problems. And if you're in the chat, I'd love to hear what your ideas are for the sorts of problems you have, and maybe even how you've tried to address those problems. So let's say that we've done that. Excuse me, bit of a frog in my throat there. We've done that, right? So we've made the effort. We've taken the bull by the horns, and we've implemented what we need to implement. And now we need to communicate that. We need to make sure that we are rectifying what those perceptions are. Now, this does have some similarities to what we talked about with last week of changing perceptions, but this is very specific to improving those customer relationships. We think about the customer relationship, we think about the customer experience, right? Beyond customer service itself, that entire experience that somebody has when they interact with us, and making that as good as possible. Now we want to go and talk about that, right? So we've rectified the issue, we've made the effort to understand what the problem is, and we fixed it, and we've implemented these changes. And it's probably a good idea for us to go out into the world with some kind of message to the people that we detect, we received the signal from that there was something wrong, to open the door for that relationship to be improved. So for example, if we look at, if it's product reviews, maybe we start to think about how we can tell a story about how we've changed what we create because of the customer, including the very essence of what it is that they're getting from the product. Maybe it is a shift in management. Maybe there's been maybe there needed to be a clear out of a certain management team or team members, and we need to talk about how we've changed our ways, and we want you to understand that we're here for you and that we're in this together. There's all sorts of potential scenarios. You think about, many companies have either an annual conference or have partner events or do a road tour with customers across a certain region, or opportunities to integrate a story that is going to communicate that we've done things to improve things for you as our customers. So when we think about that, it's got these relationships with customer obsession, right? Some of the things that come to mind as we think through what that could look like are things like, How do we relate to our customers? Are we an ally for our customers? I know that's in some ways become quite a specific word in the current zeitgeist, but in general, what that means is putting ourselves up to bat and supporting our customers, right? Being an ally of our customers. It could be a focus on the relationship. It could be thinking more like being a partner with our customers, but ultimately making sure that we're including that in the stories that we tell. Now, what happens if we don't include that in the stories that we tell? Well, we run the risk of not only not repairing the damage to the relationship, but a missed opportunity to actually create a really positive experience. I wish I could remember the specifics off the top of my head, but there is actually a statistic that focuses on the best customer experiences and that they come from the worst customer experiences. That the act of actively, proactively even, or at the very least reacting rapidly to a negative experience that a customer is having and rectifying it and doing that in a respectful way has an outcome. And that outcome is, I really appreciate what you just did. And in fact, I want to buy from companies that act like that. And so that is the positive customer experience that can come out of a negative experience. And so we want to make sure that we're thinking about this holistically. And a part of thinking holistically is how we then go and communicate the changes that we've made to the world. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. Sometimes you may have had to make a change based on some type of external feedback that it's not appropriate to go and talk about. But in general, if you're making a concerted effort as an organization, no matter how big you are, if you're making that effort to invest in and improve customer experiences, that's something that is absolutely worth prioritizing, communicating about. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. You're demonstrating that you're looking for potential negative aspects of the experience and that you're able to take steps forward to improve that. And you're opening the door to a dialogue or a further dialogue with your customers, which can then result in additional feedback, which maybe will be delivered in an even more respectful way from your customers that you can also take and you can also act on. So what we're starting to see here is this sort of self-perpetuating model of a continual investment in customer experience. And this could be something that is a part of the story you tell, could be a part of your narrative for a significant amount of time. It could be something that you hang your hat on. And if it's something that you hang your hat on, it increases the importance of making sure that you're very intentional about how you communicate that as a part of who you are as a company. So stepping back for a second and looking at the big picture, what did we run through there? Well, we've looked at a category, if you will, of business problems that relate to negative feedback from customers in any of its potential forms, and the act of rectifying that, and then the act of putting a message out into the world that you have done so, which then opens the door to that cycle happening again over time. So if you're in this type of situation today, how are you talking about it? Maybe you've just gone through a big effort of making some improvements based on customer feedback. How are you talking about that? How are you planning on talking about that? Are you thinking about things like new and improved, which is always a funny one, right? New and improved, or is it new or improved, right? And that also makes me chuckle because it makes me think about when a company brings out a product and says, it's our best fill in the blank yet. It's like, I should hope so. Why would I spend money on buying something that's not as good as your old stuff? But when we think about the act of communicating the new or improved, that's focused on the improved aspect of our products, there's a risk. And that risk is that you don't give the communication what it needs to spread. You don't give it that viral aspect. And the original viral communication that we all still use to this day is storytelling. We put ourselves into a story as we hear it, we learn how to solve a problem or navigate something, and we take something away from that. And it's encoded in a way that makes sense for how we communicate and how we see the world. And it makes it really easy to then share that story with others. So you could have two companies, both of whom went through a similar type of challenge, both of who went through a similar type of rectifying of the issues and fixing it and getting to a good place. One of those companies goes out with a message, imagine a product launch or an advertising campaign, which talks about the new improved focus, how things have changed. We've added this, we've done this, it's really great, and you're going to love it now, right? And then on the other hand, we've got a company that acknowledges why the change has happened, how the change was resolved, and what is ultimately delivered and the benefit of that for the customer. That first example only focused on the what. We've got this new thing and it does X, or we fix this thing, yay, right? On the other hand, we've got a holistic view. Why did we do this? How did we approach it? And what did we deliver? Now, I want you to think about that why, because it's super important. The why we do what we do motivates us. It gets us up out of bed in the morning. It is a filter we look through the world with that informs our decisions, including the companies that we choose to work for. And so our why has a relationship to how we operate within our companies, within our jobs, whether that's a small company or a division of a huge company. So that why aspect of us, let's take that and now let's look at the why aspect of the company, right? It might be your company. So the why aspect, why does this company exist, right? With the vision, the purpose, the mission, the driving force behind the company, and that results in how that company does things and ultimately what is delivered. And that what can change over time, obviously, as an output or a deliverable or a product or a service. That why gives you something to connect, not just to the why of the individuals who choose to work with you at your company, but also the why of the fix, the rectified problem that we've just been talking about. And so the why of the rectifying the problem, when you're thinking about that, also think about the why of your company. Why are we doing this in the first place, right? So like the why of Go Narrative is helping companies communicate more effectively so you can get attention, be heard, and sell more, or drive whatever action it is that you're looking to drive. Because we know the power of storytelling and the role it plays in all of humanity, not just the entertainment Hollywood stuff, right? But that how we see the world and how we communicate. And that's a huge part of our why. And another huge part of our why is challenging how that is being done today. So thinking differently about how a company is doing that today to help them approach things in a better way that is much clearer. So that being the Go Narrative why, if we're looking to rectify an issue, then we have an opportunity there to look at elements of that, helping you think differently about it, right? So then if we had a problem with our product or service that we were looking to rectify and we wanted to tell the story and include that in our messaging so that we could repair the damage and build better relationships, then we have an opportunity to say things like, we heard you, we noticed this, we got the message, and you know what, we appreciate it, because it helps us think differently about how we're approaching things. And that is so fundamental and so important to us as a company that not only did we want to fix this just because we wanted to fix it, but we went really deep into thinking about how we could think about this differently to not only rectify the problem for you now, but make sure that that was off into the future, and that anybody else as well would also benefit from what you told us. So here we've got the connections, right? If we stop and we hit pause again, and we think about what we're talking about. We're talking about some kind of business problem that we rectified, and now we're communicating about it. And there's this aspect of, are we just talking about the what, or are we talking about the why, the how, and the what? And it's not just the talking about it, right? Because that's an outcome, right? That's a what in itself. We're talking about the why of this, and that why is making sure that you are communicating the reason, the purpose behind this, and you have a fantastic resource within yourself, within your company. And this is particularly important for you business leaders out there, or you company owners, of using that strength, using that driving force behind your company as a filter, as a lens for how you think about how you communicate this. Quite frankly, think also how you go about solving the problem, right? As I gave you the example of the thinking differently, we would apply thinking differently as a part of our process, right? And we would look to find that better way to get to clarity of the issue, of the solution, and being really clear about how we talked about it. So there we go. That is a very real business problem that many businesses bump into. All businesses bump into it, at least in the small sense. And many businesses over the span of their existence will bump into it in a significant or important or profound sense. Wherever you are, whatever problems you're experiencing with how your customers are perceiving your company, make sure that you're prioritizing the story that you can tell that helps articulate not just the what, but also the why of the changes that you're making, and why that is so important for you as a company. When you do that, you'll be able to create a story that can inform messaging that spreads throughout your teams, through your marketing team, PR, through your sales team. If you rely on partners, as many of us do nowadays, through your partner channels, through those communications, through your events. If you're running an advertising campaign, through your advertising campaign. What's in your marketing assets and deliverables, things like your websites, any collateral that you've got. All of these places are an opportunity for you to demonstrate the importance of your customer in a practical way, and have that connect up with the why of your company and the why of what you do in the first place. And so that's a very specific type of story that you can think about telling. Let us know. I would love to hear from you if you have gone through a problem recently that you rectified and you've tried to communicate about it. Was it successful? If it was, how was it successful? Like, I'd love to hear what went well. Flip side to that, did you feel like it didn't really land? What was it that you said? What were those specifics? What was the message? How did you go about communicating it? And through that, not only would love to hear it, but also would love to make some suggestions on how you can take this to the next level. So real business problems that we need to make sure that we're telling stories about, customer obsession, improving experiences. That might just be the story that's the one story that's the most important story for you to be telling right now. And make sure that it connects up with that narrative for your organization or for your company. You can think about the narrative as being the parent and the stories as being the children. And one of those children may well be this type of story. So good luck, more power to you. I can't wait to hear from you about how you're applying storytelling in your efforts to communicate changes and shifts in how you're thinking about and relating to your customers. Have a great weekend and look forward to seeing you next week, where we're going to continue digging into and talking about business problems and how to talk about those with certain types of story. Have a great one. Cheers. Bye for now.